Are you feeling insignificant, unsafe, and insecure in your marriage?
Everyone wants to feel safe, secure, and significant in a relationship. And when that's not present, that could be a recipe for betrayal. In today's episode, we're going to talk to Dr. Carl Benzio, who's going to share that our needs are going to be met in healthy or unhealthy ways. Join us as we jump into this interview.
A lot of people hold some very hardline rules in this area. I'm not a person that has hardline rules. So for me, I do therapy. I've had many female patients over the years. I've had as patients, right? Some, very attractive, some very engaging. There's patients that have, got me presents, whether a shirt, whether a lighthouse salt and pepper shaker, a beach towel, or whatever. I've hugged certain patients, guys and girls, whenever just a monumental thing and life happens, or you just want to extend care, or I feel bad for you in that situation, or whatever. For me, that's just not a tempting situation. For me, it's a patient. It's very clear in my mind it's a patient. Other people have fallen into the trap of that closeness, that intimacy, that connection that happens, and that kind of relationship being something that moves forward. I think you sort of have to look at what's the person's track record. And there's certain things that are in their track record that show, wow, there's a certain type of person, there's a certain type of personality, there's a certain look that a person has, there's a certain MO of, whether it's, relationships at the workplace or, in their social group or whatever, that some people are a little bit more vulnerable to those things than others, or some have some pretty clear boundaries in those situations. So, they've never really had a relationship at work. They've been around a lot of attractive people at work, and it's never transpired. So to have, you can never relate with anybody. You always have to have a chaperone with somebody in those kind of situations. To go on a business trip with somebody of the opposite sex, I think that would be a difficult situation. I probably wouldn't do that and would advise against those kind of things. Make sure there's at least another third party there. Obviously, separate hotel rooms for sure, but just make sure there's another third party in that situation. But I think looking more at the person's track record, having those discussions, and if there's any kind of concern at all that one party has, that the other person should be loving and caring enough to say, hey, look, if that's an area where you're concerned about, that's fine. Our relationship is much more important than my relationship with, whatever that relationship is with that particular individual, that I can shut that down real quickly or abide by whatever guidelines you feel are safe or healthy for me, in that situation. Is there anything you're noticing about me or my demeanor with that person that's different, or that is something that is a little bit more than just a friendly kind of relationship that I need, because we all have blinders. That's why Jesus told the guys next to Lazarus to unbind him, because we all have blinders and aren't quite fully capable of unbinding all of our baggage ourselves, because we have blind spots. So, to be able to get that feedback from that person or others. And I think that we all need to have our personal board of directors of people that come alongside to encourage us, to teach us, to guide us, but to give us that feedback and that good, honest feedback about things that they notice about us that allows us to be on guard for how Satan might be tricking, or the slippery slope of a relationship that, starts innocently, but over the course of several years or an adverse experience might become something more, in the process, without diligence, without that self-reflection. To me, it would be really hard for a person who's really stable and whole to fall into that trap. So to be able to have that regular self-reflection and self-awareness process, so you can see, well, when am I slipping a little bit? Instead of being at 80 or 90% functioning, am I starting to drop to 70 or 60% functioning because of financial stress, work stress, a kid has a diagnosis of cancer, or we just relocated, or we're new on the mission field, or whatever. They could be very positive things, or they could be, significant times of adversity. When am I starting to see myself become a little bit more vulnerable to something that before, when I was at 80 or 90% functioning, I could easily be immune to that kind of temptation. But now that I'm at, 70, 60, 50% functioning, now I'm a little bit more vulnerable. And how do I recognize that myself? So I can see that, wow, I'm slipping a little bit. My dashboard, a little bit of warning lights going on there in this particular area. And I can communicate that with my spouse and say, hey, look, I notice I'm falling off here. I'm starting to get a little tense, or I'm not sleeping as well as I used to, or I'm getting a little sarcastic, or I'm not feeling as appreciated, or whatever. What are those? Everybody has their tells or their warning signs. How do we know about those as soon as they're starting to happen, so we can start to, do some problem solving in that situation, but also then be on guard for what vulnerabilities might enter into those, as those cracks start to widen in our foundation. How do we get in there and make sure that something doesn't really push those cracks apart big time and causes our life to collapse, like we can see people happen in such a short period of time?
Yeah, because I know the enemy wants nothing more than to create a little tiny secret. And I know for me, that secret begins when there's a thrill, an excitement of some kind with anyone else. He wants to grow that. I've seen that in my own life. And, we have a agreement. We're not going to keep any secrets. So keeping even that line of communication open is...
I agree.
It's challenging, but...
That's a daily, psychological, self-awareness and reflection, so that we, if you notice something like that, well, how do you want to be aware of it yourself, and then communicate it to your accountability people, spouse and other people, to make sure, hey, we're on guard.
Exactly.
I want as many people guarding the fort as possible, kind of thing. For me, just to guard my own fort, I can do a decent job with that. But the more people stand in guard for me, obviously the better.
Yeah. Getting darkness into light.
It is. Two things I loved about what you said is, one that you brought up is the communication with the spouse, being able to effectively communicate. Hey, are you seeing me show up a different way when I'm at work? And am I acting differently around this person? And I think it's great questions to be able to ask a spouse. Another one is, you mentioned about being whole and complete. Being your best self, when you're your best self, when you're filled up in the areas of your life, sometimes the temptation just isn't as strong of a thing. But then you also mentioned, hey, there's life circumstances that's going to erode away at that being whole and complete. So what a great takeaway. Thank you for that answer.
Either your needs are going to be we all have needs. Our needs are going to be met in healthy ways,
right? Or
our needs are going to be met in unhealthy ways,
right? So
whenever we're healthy and we're getting our needs met in healthy ways, and we're thriving in that, then we're not going to be as tempted by the unhealthy ways that our needs could be met. Because those unhealthy ways sort of take energy, they take effort, and there's potential drawback, and they don't resonate in our spirit. Yep. So it's a little bit bigger of a hump to go in that direction than it is the healthy direction. So as long as they're happening in the healthy direction, we're not going to deviate there. But if this starts to falter, and now we have these unmet needs, now looking at the quick fixes is, getting that flesh survival mode. I want, whatever, like you said, whatever that thrill is, I can get now just to survive this moment. I'll figure out the consequences tomorrow. I just want to thrill now. I just want to survive now. I just want to feel good now.
If you would like to see more content around betrayal and crisis in marriage, please consider subscribing to our channel. Every week we put out a new video that could support you, support your marriage, and support your healing. Thank you for considering.
Sex outside of the appropriate times, but it's amazing how many people marry somebody who is having sex with them at inappropriate times, but then assumes that that's going to stop whenever they get together.
Hey, wait a minute. Before you click off this video, if you found value in this, would you click the like button for us? Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in next week's episode.